We're going to introduce our speakers. And
so you will come up one at a time to the stage and take a seat. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with our first guest, or speaker. Kelsey Evans is owner and operator of Keeping It Green Recycling, which services businesses, film productions, homes, and special events in the Metro Vancouver area. She has been a longtime advocate for responsible recycling practices and sustainability. Building on her sustainable production work on shows such as Tomorrowland, she is consulting with Green Spark Group to advance a coordinated approach to sustainable production efforts in British Columbia. Welcome.
And next.
Thank you.
So we've heard her name a number of times today. Zena Harris, who's the president of the Green Spark Group. Zena holds a master's degree from Harvard University in sustainability and environmental management and has done extensive research on sustainability in the motion picture industry and the cross-linkage between global sustainability frameworks and the motion picture industry best practices. As we know, Zena has worked on TV shows and commercials as a sustainability consultant and with industry organizations to further sustainable production practices in the industry.
I was trying.
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. Okay.
My name is Emily O'Brien. I'm the founder of Earth Angel. I just want to, first of all, thank Zena, thank Creative BC, thank VIFF. This is the first of its kind, and I've never been in the same room with so many sustainable production leaders. Thank you for all the previous presenters. This is really a historic moment, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. And thank you all for being willing to come and learn about this topic. So our tagline at Earth Angel is making movies without making a mess. I'll tell you a little bit about our process. Up there is our mission and our philosophy. A lot of people have a different approach to sustainability. Our mission is to create a standardized one so that anytime you walk onto an Earth Angel set, you know the process. And it's a seamless integration into the existing structure of a film production. Obviously, the last thing we can do is slow down that camera in any way, so it's about how to make sustainability integrate and make it accessible. And of course, our philosophy is that we as an industry, being so visible, have a moral obligation to be leaders of sustainability. And so it's about how can we use that platform to elevate the consciousness of environmentalism. So I just want to talk about a little bit of like our hurdles and why we're having this unique conversation and why our industry is so unique. So we have a lot of different departments, and we essentially are an intersection of a lot of different types of industries. So when we talk about sustainable filmmaking, we're inevitably talking about sustainable transportation, sustainable fashion, sustainable food service. We have to have a knowledge of all of these different types of industries, and as a consultant, I have to be able to interface with all these departments and offer them realistic solutions that can work within a production timeline. So you can see the different departments, the different types of waste streams that can be expected from those different departments, and we use a really sort of easily digestible, color-coded system to help alleviate that. The other big challenge is, of course, that we are essentially a traveling circus, and especially in New York City, we do a lot of on-location shooting. It's logistically complicated, and a lot of sustainability consultants will get the luxury of working within one facility, right, where you have the same people there all the time. We don't have those luxuries. We have to be mobile, and we have to be fast, especially in New York City. So that's one of our locations maps from just one season of one of the shows we worked on, so we cover a lot of ground. So specifically in New York, as I'm sure in Vancouver as well, we really stimulate the local economy. We create a lot of jobs. All of that is fantastic. But if we really want to look at a triple bottom line film industry, we're really touting our people and our profit part of things, but what about the planet part? And that's really what we're trying to raise an awareness of, and making sure that we do evolve into a triple bottom line industry as well. New York also has a Zero Waste by 2030 initiative right now by Mayor de Blasio, so it's a really interesting time to be engaging in sustainable production in the scope of New York, so we're excited to see where we can take that. And these are sort of like the 6 pillars of Earth Angel. This is what we're concentrating on. Education and engagement being the core, I would say, of what we do. It's really about how can we approach everyone to make this as seamless as possible. And I would say the forefront of these would be the waste reduction, waste management reduction, because the zero waste initiative of what we do is huge, because that's the thing that everyone's interacting with every single day. That's your opportunity to engage, and people can look at solid waste and understand that, whereas a lot of people can't understand what our carbon emissions or our greenhouse gas emissions are. But it's a great tool if we're setting up composting and recycling, as I'm sure Kelsey and Zena can attest to then transition into these larger sustainable dialogues. So that's what we try to focus on. And so the way we do this, we've created our own department. So we're the eco department. We're like any other department. And this is what we have found to be the best way to integrate sustainable production in terms of getting the entire crew on board, in terms of actual behavioral change, getting your Teamsters to compost, getting other folks to get interested in LED lighting, to get to raise the dialogue. We found that you have to have a resource on the ground for folks to really be able to take this and run with it, because it's one thing for us to be change agents, but what we're ultimately trying to do here is create more change agents so that there's a ripple effect here. And that it can keep thriving. So if we integrate ourselves as another department into the other departments, we're then making it an accessible resource to the show, and then actually creating some actual efficient and results. So that's what we're ultimately going for. And so that's just a quick look at our filmography and some of the productions we've worked on. Mainly based out of New York, one international production, and we're also in Atlanta right now. So we're really trying to get the word out, get on as many shows as we can, and keep making a difference any chance we can, basically. And this is just a look at some of our results to date in terms of our waste diversion in particular in New York. So you can sort of see over the years what we've helped, the impact we've helped lessen. And the last thing I want to just contribute is there's a real psychological hurdle here when we talk about sustainable production. And I like to refer to it as cinematic immunity. And I think we as filmmakers, and I put myself in that category because I went to film school and I was a filmmaker, and I too thought that the world revolved around my art. And the reality is that we are just a small industry in a very large global economy, and there's a lot more that's going on than just our films and our televisions every day. And while the entertainment industry is incredibly progressive in its content, it's not always progressive in its practice. And I think that there's a lot of room for opportunity for improvement. And I think that's, we see that in terms of equality and gender representation and diversity. And I think that we as an industry can be a lot stronger if we start to think about sustainability in the same way we think about all of these other ways we can make our industry more progressive. So I just wanted to mention that psychological hurdle because I think it's an important one. And then that's just Earth Angel stuff.
Wow. I'm so inspired. Wow, you're amazing. So can you tell us, just before we start the general questions, how successful are you in New York? Like what percentage of production is pulling you on the set?
Less than 1%. There's tremendous room for growth.
Wow.
We had over 300 films shoot in New York in 2015, over 52 television series. We worked on less than 1% of them. So not to say that those productions...
You have a big boulder to move up that hill.
Exactly. So, and not to say that there aren't productions in New York that are doing great sustainable things. There certainly are. But in terms of building that standardization of what we're trying to achieve and getting everybody on the same page.
What about outside New York? Do you work in any other jurisdictions?
In Atlanta as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're also a small percentage?
I just started working in Atlanta, so Atlanta's still to be determined.
Okay, sounds interesting. I've got a good question to start with. Who usually hires you, and what's the first thing you do when you're hired? Who would like to take that one?
For Keep It Green Recycling, the office, I'm guessing it would be PM and production coordinator hires Keep It Green Recycling, and right away we come in and we'll set up recycling bins for the office, and then from there it starts to be construction, costumes, set deck, props, and then sometimes stages. So we'll go in and just assess and have a look and see what their needs are, but usually it's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, we just go in there and set them up for them and pick up weekly.
So for me, it's been mostly initiated by the studios in LA, and then I've had a couple cases where the production office has called. So that's how it's worked so far.
And Emily?
UPMs and line producers hire me. I find that the reason we get brought onto a show is because somebody above the line has to care. I've also been brought on because a director has said that this is important to him. So it definitely, I think we've all been talking about the decision has to come from the top, and certainly having a champion at the top is extremely important.
We'll work with more of our directors then. Marnie?
Yeah, so what are you doing about barriers and what the barriers you're facing and the challenges and how you guys overcome those?
Well, I think Emily touched on that a little bit in terms of the psychological component of it all. A lot of times I find that folks just don't know what's possible. That's been one, and so that's been a barrier to kind of get over that and say no. There are opportunities, there are possibilities. It's happening in various parts of the world. We can do it in film, that sort of thing, and that's a probably one that I come up against a lot, and yeah, there's a lot. What would you say?
I would also add a lack of information.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know what the average film production's, carbon footprint is or waste generated is. And I know Erin can probably, is an amazing resource in terms of talking about what's happening in the UK. But in terms of what's going on in the US, we don't really have a standardized way of telling folks, what the impact really is. And so I think because of that, it's still this sort of nebulous thing that people can't really wrap their heads around and don't really feel that impetus to act on. But when we start to, in a lot of our data analysis, we try to translate what the production's impact is, and really try to bring it on a level that people can understand, but that's only on a production by production basis. I'd love to expand that further.
And it's a lot of the conversation we're having with Zena and Kelsey as we move Real Green forward is helping productions understand across the board, getting that information out through us. So.
I would actually say for Keep It Green Recycling is just making sure everyone's on board with the system, teaching the set system as well. I mean, it's just the system that I set up, but making sure that people are rinsing. But other than that, the productions are so on board with my program that it's been super, super simple and easy. But yeah.
I'm so jealous of you, Kelsey. I'm so jealous.
I do want to say that what really sort of resonated with me was what you were talking about in your mission statement with it becoming a standardized process, and I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. So, because I think one thing that crews that move from show to show to show, they get used to doing things a certain way. I think we all do in our lives. So once we start to get those systems in place, and we're working with all the labor organizations and commercials. Obviously, it's going to be different for bigger shows and series and domestic production and commercials, but at least that standardized piece. And of course, Kelsey, you're doing that right now. So I think it's already becoming integrated in when productions are setting up. So.
It only took 6 years.
I was going to say it. I don't know if you guys have felt this, but there's this amazing thing that I like to refer to as the Earth Angel effect, which is when I'll see a crew member, a third grip, or someone from a production I worked on 3 or 4 years ago, and they'll be like, oh, it's an Earth Angel set. Cool, we're composting. It's just like they just understand it,
Yeah.
and it just becomes a part
Yeah.
of their everyday.
Do you arrive on set with wings?
You know,
You should.
I haven't, but you just brought up a whole new branding strategy for me. I never.
Okay, I've
considered.
got a question leading in. Let's talk costs. Shows are hiring you. You've worked on some big ones. And this financially reasonable for smaller shows too. Who wants to tackle?
For Keep It Green Recycling, it's to do with your own volume. So if it's a smaller show, it's going to be cheaper. And also, if they want to do it themselves or bring it to places, I can always help them with that system too.
Sure, and so we can also work with shows on a as needed basis. So if you want to bring us on for a day, great. Or if you want to bring us on for a couple of hours and just train folks and get a system in place and that's it, that's fine too. So we're pretty flexible in that regard. So we can do everything from the whole large production, everything, starting in pre-production all the way to wrap and post-production work, or very as needed, couple days training or whatever. So it basically, yeah, we're pretty flexible. We just want to help as much as possible, so really cater to your needs.
I would agree with that. I keep it flexible. I mean, I've gone in and just done lunch seminars with productions, or I've come in and consulted in the beginning when I do a halfway check-in, and then I'll do the end report for them. So it's really, I would say all of our shows are sort of on what I like to call a spectrum of sustainability. I work with producers that are so sustainability minded that if they see a single plastic water bottle on set, it's the end of the world. And I work on other shows where they're just sort of like, do your thing, but stay out of the way. And so it's really it's up to these producers how far they want to go.
Yeah, for sure.
We have some of those production managers in here, I think.
We know who you are.
We love you
I
guys.
see you. I'd point you out.
But I think what's cool about that is, like you said, is once the crew starts to come on and to set, and film people are passionate, no matter whether you're in front of the camera, behind it, producing, and when they come on and start saying, well, where's the recycling and what's happening, it's it starts to saturate in on that level, and I think it's that whole sandwich we talk about where it's got to come from below and up top, and somewhere in the middle it all comes together.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened with Keep It Green in 2015 is that people were actually starting to ask, like, where's the composting? Where's the recycling? So now, like, if you saw my grid from 2015, it just went like this in 2016. It's because not just the offices were recycling, it's actually all the departments. So
They drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
fantastic.
I've noticed that as well, coming on to set, and people are asking, "Where's the setup?" Last show I was on, we had this kind of setup. Where is it? And so it's good that is taking effect.
Yeah.
So
It's shifting.
And I think with that, all those pieces that we're talking about in terms of training and getting that sustainable production education into the motion picture industry orientation course, and so excited to be working with BAFTA. We haven't actually met yet, Erin, but we're going to meet.
Hi there.
So it's when you're hitting it from every point, right? So it's coming from the minute you walk into the production office before you even start the show, and I think it's the education piece that's really exciting too. What types of tools do you guys use in terms of carbon calculators and carbon footprints, and where are those from?
So, I mean, I think maybe we all use the same one. We referenced the Green Production Guide that probably many of you saw earlier that the studios put together, and that's with the PGA Greens, the Producer Guild of America, and they have best practices and a carbon calculator that we use here anyway. And I'm assuming that you use that too?
Yes,
Yeah.
likewise, we use that. We also use the EPA's WARM model to do a lot of our conversions because there's a lot of, obviously, different types of waste that's generated, and it's how do you calculate what the carbon emissions are as a result of that waste generated that was diverted from the landfill. So we go to the EPA for a lot of that information as well.
And then I just keep a log too, and then I can convert it and give you the weight and tons as well. Usually it's not tons yet, but yards.
What kind of tools or resources offered by Creative BC would be helpful? Well, this is, I guess, more, sorry, we could help too, though. It's global.
Say that again.
Tools.
What kind of tools or resources, can we come up with at Creative BC that would be
Our
helpful?
industry, I think, our organization, but I think
Yeah,
one of
we
the
can
big
help.
things we've all talked about today,
Yeah.
which is really exciting, is those, the partnerships. It's not just one organization that's doing it, and I think everyone's starting to feel that weight off their shoulders, that there's so many organizations and people here today. So when we say industry, I mean that's vendors, suppliers, municipalities, cities, labor organizations, the province, etc. So it's kind of a big question.
Yeah, bringing that all together, I think, and making it easy for folks locally, producers, to just get that package and understand, what the options are,
Yeah.
really, who they can call, or how they can do it themselves, that sort of thing. And also, we've mentioned several times today integrating it into, the training opportunities that are there, so that when, new filmmakers come on board, they learn right away what some of these systems are and practices, and what's being tracked and that sort of thing, and then they have a baseline knowledge, and then they can just go from there. And so I mentioned new filmmakers, but it's really like we can, I think,
All benefit.
Yeah. from that as well, and then that way you just now know what's expected, and also just how we can evolve. So.
Yeah, and we're hoping, of course, to evolve our website. Real Green will be the hub for this information moving
Yeah.
forward.
Sure.
It can help.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do we, sorry, go ahead.
How much time do we think we have? 15? There's a couple of good questions at the end. At the end of the day, why do you do what you do?
Emily, so far.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of, like I mentioned, I went to film school and sort of had this idea in my head of I was, going to become a film producer, and that was the path that I was set on. And then I got completely derailed when, for me, what it was sort of recognizing that there's a fundamental hypocrisy in our industry in that we talk a big talk and we don't always walk it. And I just thought, here we are, we're entertainment. I loved, who was it who was talking about this being a luxury good? I loved that. Was it Chris? Yeah, it was amazing. And it is. This is a luxury good that we're producing, and it's important, and it's integral to our culture, and it's amazing, but it does not have to be done at the expense of the environment. And I think for me, it was about knowing that, we're an industry that creates the most incredible scenery, and we make it snow in the summer, and we do like all these incredible things. We can do this sustainably. Like, this isn't, and so it was more about knowing that the resources were available, but what was lacking was the will, and knowing that there's a connection there to be bridged, and that's what keeps me going.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I studied the film industry years ago, and in a corporate sustainability grad school program, we're looking at sustainability in many industries, and I noticed that the film industry, and this was years ago, seemed to be, when all the ratings and rankings kind of lagging behind in some areas. So I thought, what? I had a little bit of experience in the industry, and I thought, if I want to make a big difference in the world, which is, a grand goal, but, I wanted to dive into to figure out what I could do to help the film industry, and I've just kind of evolved from there. And I do notice this amazing potential in harnessing creativity for more for sustainability. I mean, we can create anything. I mean, we put anything we want on the screen, and so we can certainly use that creativity towards sustainability as well in implementing practices. We really can do anything. So,
Yay, and we're really happy to have you in BC.
I've been passionate about recycling and composting at a young age. It started in elementary school. I was part of the recycling club. Back home, we used to have 3 large chicken-wired compost bins that we would use one, then the second one,
Where
then
was
the third
that?
one. Paul River, BC. So then I came here and actually worked with Warren that was asking all those questions, and worked as a production assistant and watching people throw like the big water jugs into the garbage, even just water bottles, and just the waste. It made me sick, and so right then and there I thought, okay, let's change something. And I just love my film family, and I don't know, everyone's just been so supportive and on board. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from the audience? Over here? Over there? We got a mic?
Hello? Oh, well, that was great. Thanks, guys. Earlier today, the first panel was talking about how there was an issue with what we could do better, and there was a conversation about food donation, and there was some sort of confusion about what the rules are and what they aren't. So I was wondering, actually, Zina, this is for you. This is for you. Do you know what the rules are, or where you could find that information so that we could, or yeah, actually, yeah, so if you can know what the actual. What are the rules? Because there's clearly some sort of misinformation that like it's illegal or you can't, or you.
We can certainly donate food. If you're there's an act in BC that protects any licensed food vendor who prepares meals ready for consumption and maintains I'm jumbling my words, but yes, food safety, rules. Yes, we can donate food. We can donate the food.
You can actually get the information. I've mentioned this before too, depending on where you are. Say if you're just in Surrey, I'm just going to use that as an example. Just call 604 Recycle and ask them for where the food donation places are, and they will give you the list, and all you have to do is call them, ask what their requirements are. But yes, we have the blessings from the studio, so.
And I think also we're going to get into some of this in the next session with the myth busting as well with the VEC. So I think we're going to dive right down that hole, and certainly through our organization in Real Green, that's all the information that we want to get out and communicating throughout the municipalities. I know the city film coordinators, municipal film coordinators, we work at having our community affairs meetings, so getting that information out for sure. But I think we're going to get a lot more information in the next session as well.
Can I say one more thing? Actually, Warner Brothers, Mike, was it Emily Owens? They actually set up a fridge just for set food. So after every lunch, they would come and bring it to the fridge, and then food runners, I believe, Angel Food Runners, would come and pick it up. So shows have done it.
Okay. Another question? There was someone over here, yes. And then up here. No. Oh.
Hello? Hello? No? Yes? Okay, there we go. Sorry. Earth Angel, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Emily.
Emily.
You can call me that though. That's actually my nickname.
Okay.
That's how the name of the company started. So I also respond to that.
I really love the work that you guys do in New York. I noticed the thing that you mentioned was something about behavior change. It's something that I'm really interested in working on during my master's now. And my question to you is that how have you engaged with, say, the construction crews and the design department to really look at that issue in itself? I feel like that's a huge opportunity. And I'm just curious about, have you guys looked at a larger system and sort of that educational part and the engagement part with, say, the construction department in itself?
Sure. So as far as like construction, production design goes, that requires us being brought on very early on before those decisions are made about, or as the decisions are being made about what sets are going to be constructed and how they're going to be constructed. Now, anytime we talk about sustainability in a creative industry, everybody gets very defensive and on edge because nobody wants to feel like their creative decisions are being impacted in any way. People want the freedom to express their creativity, which is completely understandable. But certainly things like using, FSC certified lumber as opposed to lumber that's contributing to deforestation, that's an easy fix. Or if there are ways to exchange those materials between shows so that things are getting reused and we're not having to use virgin materials, that's also, if we can get in early enough to have those discussions, we of course have those discussions, but a lot of times those sets are already coming up by the time we come in, which is unfortunate. But to your point about behavioral change also, I would say even if somebody is not on board with, if they think climate change is a hoax, or if they think that the whole, green thing is a myth and the silliest thing they've ever heard, the one thing that I found that crew members respond to is work ethic. And I think, honestly, the reason that we've seen so much success is because they see somebody on set every day digging through that trash, and they realize that their actions have consequences. And I found that no matter what your job is, if you work hard, people in this industry respect you. And so that's what I'm always telling our PAs and our Earth Angel team, because if we can't convince them that, climate change is real, we can at least convince them that we're hardworking people that deserve their respect, and then eventually that we can continue that dialogue.
One more question.
Hi, I'm Diane with the Crossing Studios. So we've got 8 stage facilities, and some of the productions that come into our building, they are, with Fox or with NBC, and so they're naturally already on the program. And then we have other companies that aren't, and we see a tremendous amount of wastage. So I'm just wondering what we as a studio facilities infrastructure provider can do to, should we be insisting that they use these certain bins, and should we have this stuff set up ahead of time? I mean, obviously, I can see the obvious answer now, but, it's not always politically accepted. So that's my question.
I actually have been working with North Shore Studios and Vancouver Film Studios. They've made it mandatory to recycle and compost. So right away they have the big 4-yard or 3-yard compost bin on the lot that the shows they have to use it. So if, like say VFS, you go into an office, all the bins are in there ready to go for recycling. They have the bin on the lot. And if they see any compost, any like cardboard in their garbage bin, they actually ask the production to take it out. And that's even to do with like any electronics, anything, if they see in that bin. So if the studios are on board, the productions have to be on board. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's still some productions that still need to compost on set.
And we'll work
so
on
they're
this.
actually just eating the charges that they get fined.
I think, are we running out of time? We have one last question, which I think is a good way to wrap it up. What is your hope for sustainable production in the future? Gina wants to go first.
Well, I think Emily hit on it earlier too. Just a consistent approach to how we do things, and consistency meaning, we're talking the same talk here in Vancouver as they are in New York, as they are in the UK, and we're all kind of in this together, and we've got a sort of standardized way of doing things. That there's flexibility that can be built into that system, but I think that's what I would love to see, and I'd love for us to get to a point where we're not calling it sustainable production anymore. We're just calling it production. This is just how we do things, and we're not creating. We're not talking about recycling and all of that. It's just what we do. It's not how can we implement this system. It's just how we do things. So I'd love to see us get to that point.
I'd love to see the creatives actually get inspired by this as well. How can we inspire these creative choices to be made sustainably? You know, a lot of times everybody's like, yeah, go for recycling your heart out. That's not on screen. I don't care about it. But certainly I think if we can start to get to that point which we are, not to say that we aren't. I mean, look at all the great sustainable messaging that was on X-Files, which you guys did a great job of. But, you know, really sort of empowering the filmmakers themselves, I think, to embrace this is really huge. And that's why I think this event today is so huge. I mean, we've never had anything like this in the States. Like, this has never happened at a film festival in the United States. So I just really, I want to keep seeing more of these, is what I would like to see.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you guys say. Everything to be the norm, like all of this would be normal. Recycling to set destruction, like all of it, just to be normal. Right. Easy, done.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just wanted to say, just really hit the nail on the head there, Emily. A huge, huge thanks to Zina for all of this and pulling us all together.
Yeah.
I know, Kelsey, everyone here is involved, and I think that's a great piece, is that, you know, as soon as Zina starts talking, everyone's like, yeah, I want to, exactly. How do we do this? So really, really exciting to be a part of it. So.
Yeah. Very inspiring. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks
Yeah.
for attending.
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank
gets
you
to
all.
get up and stretch their legs for a few minutes. You have to be back here, though, for 3:30. And there's going to be a VEC, presented Myth-Busting Common Misconceptions.
Right, that will be a good
So
one.
that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you.